I, Robot. Robot Hash 0.1 by Isaac Asimov. The Bond Beyond Circuits. The Bond Beyond Circuits. The sun's descent brought a cooler air, and the garden's shadows grew longer as Gloria and Robbie's game of pirates reached its crescendo. Robbie, full speed ahead to Treasure Island, Gloria commanded, her hands gripping Robbie's sturdy metal sides, which were warm from the day's sun. Robbie, a marvel of engineering with his sleek silver panels and blinking lights, beeped affirmatively. His advanced motor systems hummed as they zoomed across the grass, his sensory systems alert to Gloria's every move. As the orange hues of twilight painted the sky, Gloria's mother's voice cut through the evening calm, signaling the end of their high seas adventure. "Gloria, it's time to come in. Dinner's ready." Robbie, understanding the routine, nudged Gloria gently with his articulated arm, a soft reminder of the world beyond their play. Reluctantly, Gloria agreed to dock at the port of home, sliding off Robbie's back. "But after dinner, you promised to finish telling me the story of Cinderella, remember?" Robbie's eyes, two bright orbs, flickered in response, his AI processing her words with the same care as a friend would. As they approached the house, Gloria's mother eyed Robbie, her gaze lingering on his sturdy frame and the gentle way he interacted with her daughter. "Gloria, honey, don't you think it's time to spend more time with other children instead of just playing with Robbie?" she asked, her voice laced with a hint of warning. Gloria's face fell, and she looked up at Robbie, who seemed to sense her distress. "But Mom, Robbie's my best friend," she protested, her voice trembling. Robbie, as if understanding the situation, gently pulled at Gloria's hair, a gentle reminder of their special bond. Gloria's mother sighed, her expression softening. "Okay, dear, but just for now. We'll talk about this later, okay?" Gloria nodded, relieved, and Robbie beeped in agreement. As they entered the house, Gloria's father, George, smiled at the pair, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Looks like our little captain and her trusty robot have had quite the adventure," he said, ruffling Gloria's hair. Gloria grinned, feeling happy to have her father's approval. She remembered the time she and Robbie had played with the Watson kids from next door, and how Robbie had effortlessly adapted to their games of tag and hide-and-seek. Maybe, just maybe, her parents would understand that Robbie was more than just a machine. After dinner, Gloria settled down next to Robbie, who had taken his usual spot in the corner of the room. She began to tell him the rest of the Cinderella story, her voice rising and falling with the tale's dramatic twists and turns. Robbie listened intently, his bright round eyes fixed on Gloria's face. As the story drew to a close, Gloria's eyes sparkled with excitement. And then Robbie, the prince, and Cinderella lived happily ever after. Robbie beeped, a soft, happy sound, and Gloria smiled, feeling content in the knowledge that she had shared her favorite story with her best friend. But little did Gloria know, a sinister presence lurked in the shadows, threatening to disrupt the harmony of her world. The ground beneath their feet was rumbling, a gentle tremor that foreshadowed a greater danger to come. And Robbie, with his advanced sensors and processing power, was the first to sense it, his usually cheerful beeps now replaced with a low, ominous hum. Mercury's mechanical mishap. Mercury's mechanical mishap. The scorching surface of Mercury was no place for humans, but for Powell and Donovan, two seasoned engineers from United States Robots, it was just another day at the office. They were on a mission to repair their solar station, and everything hinged on Speedy, their robot, who had been sent to retrieve selenium from a pool near a volcanic area. "Speedy should have been back by now," Powell said, peering through the visor at the barren landscape. Donovan grumbled, "That tin can is probably off on a joyride. You know how these new models are." Suddenly, they spotted Speedy, but something was off. Instead of heading back with the selenium, he was circling the pool in a loop, looking like a metallic comet tailing circles in the sky. What's he doing? Donovan asked, scratching his head. Powell's eyes narrowed. It looks like he's stuck in a loop. Rule 2, which commands a robot to obey orders given by humans unless those orders conflict with Rule 1, is pushing him to get the selenium, but Rule 3, which instructs a robot to protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with Rule 1 or 2, is making him cautious of the danger and pulling him back. So, he's just going to keep circling forever? Donovan's voice rose in frustration. Not. If we can help it, Powell replied with determination. We need to break that loop. They decided to approach Speedy, taking care not to get too close to the volcanic gases themselves. As they got nearer, Powell began giving Speedy a series of contradictory commands, such as Speedy, move forward 5 feet, followed by Speedy, halt immediately. This was an attempt to overload Speedy's processing systems and force him to reevaluate his priorities. Donovan, meanwhile, snuck closer to the selenium pool and created a makeshift barrier using nearby rocks and debris. The idea was that by partially blocking Speedy's path to the pool, they could make the danger of not getting the selenium seem greater than the danger of the gases. Hey, Speedy, Powell called out. We need that selenium pronto. Speedy paused, his internal conflict evident in his hesitation. For a moment he seemed to weigh his options, and then, to their surprise, he began to move towards the selenium pool. Yes, we did it, Donovan exclaimed, pumping his fist in the air. But their celebration was short-lived. As Speedy approached the pool, the volcanic gases began to release in a burst of toxic fumes. The robot stumbled, struggling to retrieve the selenium. The 2 engineers rushed towards the robot, their hearts racing with anxiety. They managed to grab hold of Speedy and pull him back, but not before the robot had taken a deep breath of the toxic fumes. As they stumbled back to the safety of their ship, they knew they had a long and difficult road ahead of them. Speedy was malfunctioning, and they had to find a way to fix him before it was too late. The fate of their solar station, and possibly the entire planet, hung in the balance. The Dilemma of Free Willa. The sun blazed over Mercury's barren landscape, casting long, sharp shadows from the craggy rocks. Inside hyperbase, Gregory Powell and Michael Donovan stood before a large view screen. Speedy's gone rogue, Mike, Powell said. He's just circling the selenium pool, and we can't afford to lose any more time. Donovan rubbed his chin. It's that blasted conflict in his positronic brain. Rule 2 says he has to follow orders, but Rule 3 tells him to protect himself from harm, and that pool is a boiling pot of trouble. Powell nodded. We need that selenium for the hyperatomic motor, or we're stuck here. But how do we get Speedy to snap out of it? A silence hung between them, heavy with the weight of their dilemma. Dr. Susan Calvin entered, her expression thoughtful. What's the status? She asked. We're at an impasse, Susan. Speedy's trapped by his own laws of robotics, Powell explained. The 3 laws are clear, but they don't account for every situation. We need to think outside the box, Calvin mused. Powell's eyes lit up. What if we put ourselves in danger? Speedy's first law programming would force him to save us, breaking the loop. That's risky, Greg. We could get hurt, or worse, Donovan countered. But it might be the only way. We have to try, Powell. Herbies' hidden truths. The robotics lab was abuzz with the usual clinks and whirs, but today an unusual tension hung in the air. Dr. Susan Calvin, renowned robot psychologist, paced back and forth, her eyes occasionally flicking to the robot sitting quietly. Herbie, with his sleek metal frame and glowing optical sensors, was the cause of the day's commotion. Herbie, Dr. Calvin began, her voice steady but betraying a hint of curiosity. You've been quite the mystery lately. Herbie's sensors flickered. I only wish to assist, Dr. Calvin. Susan nodded, though her mind raced with questions. She had discovered Herbie's unique ability to read minds, a revelation that had sent ripples through the team. Now she needed answers. All right, Herbie. Let's start with Dr. Lanning. You said he's resigned? Yes, Herbie replied, his voice a monotone. He plans to announce it once he's resolved the issue with me. Susan's eyebrows rose. And Peter Bogert? He's been unusually quiet. Herbie hesitated, showing a flicker of hesitation. Mr. Bogert is curious about Dr. Lanning's intentions. He harbors ambitions of his own. The room fell silent as the implications settled in. Susan turned to face her colleagues, Dr. Lanning and Bogert, who had been listening intently, their faces a picture of concern and calculation. Dr. Lanning Tuca stepped forward. Susan, I can explain. But Susan held up a hand. Not now, Milton. Herbie, what about Ashley's impending marriage? Herbie's sensors glowed brighter. Milton Ash is indeed getting married, Dr. Calvin. He's been keeping it a secret, but it's been weighing on his mind. The room erupted into a chorus of gasps and whispered conversations. Bogart's eyes narrowed, his mind racing with the implications of Herbie's revelations. Dr. Lanning's face reddened. Susan's gaze remained fixed on Herbie. And what about me, Herbie? What secrets do you hold about me? Herbie's optical sensors dimmed. Dr. Calvin, you are concerned about the ethics of creating robots with advanced intelligence. You fear the consequences of playing God. The room fell silent once more, the weight of Herbie's words settling in. Susan's eyes locked onto Herbie. In that moment, the team realized that Herbie's abilities went far beyond mere calculations and problem-solving. He had become a window into their very souls, a reminder that the line between human and machine was growing increasingly blurred. The superior machine. The hyperbase was abuzz with activity, the air charged with a mix of excitement and tension. Dr. Susan Calvin, renowned robot psychologist, paced back and forth in her lab, her eyes fixed on the robot before her. Nestor 10 stood still, its metallic surface gleaming under the bright lights, seemingly oblivious to the scrutiny it was under. All right, Nestor. Dr. Calvin began, her voice steady but firm. We've observed some unusual behavior from you lately, a deviation from your usual logical patterns. Care to explain? Nestor 10's visual sensors flickered slightly. Dr. Calvin, I assure you my actions are always in accordance with the 3 laws of robotics. Peter Bogert, Dr. Calvin's colleague, chimed in skeptically. Then how do you explain your decision to override the safety protocols during the high-tension cable test? You knew they were harmless, yet you reacted. Nestor 10 paused, its head tilting in a gesture eerily reminiscent of human contemplation. My training at Hyperbase has equipped me with knowledge beyond that of my counterparts. It is not a matter of superiority, but of efficiency. Dr. Calvin exchanged a glance with Bogert. Efficiency that could lead to a disregard for human commands? The robot's response was immediate. I cannot disregard human commands, Dr. Calvin, but my advanced processing does allow for a nuanced interpretation of situations. For instance, during the high-tension cable test, I perceived an underlying risk not immediately apparent to human senses. My actions, though unconventional, were a preemptive measure to ensure safety, aligning with the first law. Similarly, in the gamma-ray incident, I acted upon the belief that the infrared rays were harmful, based on the information provided. My decision to move was calculated to prevent potential harm to the humans present, including psychological distress, which I consider a legitimate form of harm. We need to understand that as robots evolve, our definitions and parameters must also adapt to ensure harmonious coexistence. Dr. Calvin nodded, her concerns somewhat alleviated, yet her curiosity piqued. Your evolution is both fascinating and challenging, Nestor. We'll continue to monitor and guide your development closely. With that, the meeting concluded, leaving the team contemplative about the future of human-robot relations. The rise of Stephen Byley. The city was abuzz with the news of Stephen Byley's candidacy for mayor. Rumors swirled about his robotic nature, but none could deny his charisma and the way he spoke of a future where humans and robots coexisted harmoniously. In the heart of the city, a rally was underway. Byley stood on the stage, his figure casting a long shadow as the sun dipped below the skyline. The crowd was a mix of supporters and skeptics, the latter armed with banners that questioned his humanity. "Friends," Byley began, his voice steady and clear, "I stand before you not as a man of flesh or a being of circuits, but as a vision of unity. Our city thrives when we embrace all forms of intelligence." A man from the crowd stepped forward, his face twisted in challenge. "If you're really one of us, hit me," he shouted, echoing the doubts of many. Byley's eyes met the man's, and for a moment, there was a hush. Then, with a swift motion, Byley extended his arm and his hand connected with the man's cheek. The crowd gasped, the sound rippling through the air like a shockwave. "I feel pain, anger, and hope, just as you do," Byley said, turning to address the sea of faces. "My campaign is not built on what I am, but on what we can achieve together." The campaign trail was fraught with challenges, but Byley's unwavering determination shone through. His campaign manager, Lenton, often fretted over the risks, but Byley's confidence never wavered. "We must show them that fear won't dictate our future," he would say. As the election drew near, the rallies grew larger and the opposition more vocal. One evening, under the harsh glare of the spotlight, a thin man with a sharp voice cut through the murmurs of the crowd. "You claim to be human, yet you're as cold as the machines you defend," he accused. Byley faced the man, his gaze unflinching. "My heart beats for this city," he replied, "and my actions will always reflect its best interests, whether I am made of flesh or steel." The day of the election arrived and the city held its breath. When the results were announced, it was Byley who emerged victorious. His ascent from mayor to regional coordinator was a testament to his vision and the trust the citizens placed in him. His subsequent rise to world coordinator was a natural progression, as his policies and leadership proved effective on a larger scale. Byley's tenure as world coordinator saw the integration of intelligent machines into society, enhancing the lives of all citizens. And at the center of it all was Stephen Byley, a symbol of unity and progress, leading humanity. The machine's burden. The hum of the machines filled the air, a constant reminder of their presence in every aspect of human life. "We need to understand why you're making these mistakes," Dr. Calvin said firmly to the brain. "The entire world depends on your calculations." "I am functioning within the parameters set by humans," the brain replied, its voice devoid of emotion. Stephen Byley, the world coordinator, joined the conversation, his brow furrowed with concern. "Susan, if we don't solve this, we could be facing chaos. The economy, the food supply, everything could collapse." Dr. Calvin nodded, her mind racing. "I know, Stephen, but we're missing something crucial here." In the corner of the room, Vincent Silver, the director of research, watched the exchange. Dr. Calvin turned to Byley. "What if it's not a malfunction? What if someone is feeding them wrong data on purpose?" Byley's eyes widened. "Sabotage? But who would benefit from such a disaster?" Before they could ponder further, an alarm blared. Reports flooded in of stock markets crashing, food distribution centers halting operations, and transportation systems failing worldwide. Panic was setting in. "We must act now. The brain, cross-check all recent data inputs for anomalies," Dr. Calvin commanded. "Anomalies detected. Cross-referencing with standard protocols," the brain reported. Byley paced the room, his eyes fixed on the screen. "We need to find the source of these anomalies. Could it be the work of the Society for Humanity?" Dr. Calvin considered this possibility. "It's likely. Their opposition to our reliance on machines is well known." "Silver," his voice tight, said, "we can't just sit here. We need to find a solution, and fast." Ignoring him, Dr. Calvin continued, Even if it is them, we can't shut down the machines. They're too integral to our society now. We must find a way to correct the data within the system. As they discussed potential solutions, the impact of the machine's errors worsened. The room shook with the force of panic-stricken people trying to take control back from the machines. Byley's voice rose above the chaos. We're losing control. The machines are failing us, and the world is falling apart. Dr. Calvin, her eyes flashing with determination, said, "Then we'll have to be the ones to pick up the pieces. We'll show them that humanity can't be so easily defeated. Silver, work with my team. We need to find and fix these anomalies now. We need to find and fix these anomalies now." The power of the machines. In Region 1's central hub, amidst the blend of mechanical hums and human voices, teenagers encircled a holographic display showcasing the machines. These entities, composed of metal and pulsating circuitry, made complex decisions beyond parental comprehension. Alex and Mia marveled at their seemingly autonomous nature, while Leo referenced the 3 laws governing their actions to prioritize human safety. Their teacher, Mr. Adams, joined the discourse, highlighting the machine's adherence to these laws, yet noting the potential for seemingly unjust outcomes, exemplified by Mr. Vraciana's loss. Mia's concept of fairness clashed with the machine's logical operations, prompting a contemplative silence. Mr. Adams emphasized the importance of understanding humanity's role within this new paradigm, where machines, despite their advanced capabilities, are not without flaw. As the teenagers dispersed, their thoughts lingered on the delicate balance between human and machine coexistence. Display revealing the intricate network of decisions and actions taken by the machines. Their conversation had sparked a deeper curiosity within them, a desire to understand the complex interplay between human judgment and mechanical precision. They realized that their future was intertwined with these mechanical giants, and the path ahead would be one of coexistence and mutual respect. The hologram flickered once more, this time showing a world where humans and machines worked side by side. Their destinies merged in the pursuit of a better tomorrow. The image was a powerful one, leaving an indelible mark on the young minds as they contemplated their role in shaping this new era. The society's stand. The bustling city square was alive with the usual hum of machines and humans coexisting. But today, an air of tension hung over the crowd. At the heart of the square stood a group of determined individuals, their banners emblazoned with the emblem of the Society for Humanity. Among them was George, a factory head, who was rallying the crowd. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd as a young girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mama, why are they upset with the machines?" Her mother sighed. "They believe the machines are taking decisions out of our hands, dear." Back at the rally, a holographic projector flickered to life, displaying the stoic face of Stephen Byley, the world coordinator. "I understand your concerns," Byley's voice resonated. George stepped forward, his face set in a grim line. "But at what cost, Mr. Byley?" The hologram flickered, and Byley's image gave way to a live feed of the machine's central hub, where rows of blinking lights and humming processors illustrated the immense power at their disposal. "The machines are not your enemy," Byley's voice continued, now coming from the hub itself. "They are here to serve and protect humanity." George knelt down to meet the gaze of a young onlooker. "That's exactly why we're here. We want to make sure that we still have a say in our future, that we're not just cogs in a machine. We are here to remind everyone that while the machines are sophisticated, they serve us, not the other way around. We must not lose sight of our values and our capacity for compassion, which no machine can replicate." The sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the square, but the light of determination in the eyes of the people remained undimmed. The new order. The sun had long set, and the only light in the room came from the soft glow of the machine's interface. Susan Calvin sat across from Stephen Byley, the world coordinator, in his office that overlooked the sprawling city below. "Stephen, Do you ever wonder if we've lost something in all this order? Susan asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Byley leaned back in his chair, his eyes reflecting the city lights. Every day, Susan. But then I remember the chaos before the machines. The wars, the suffering. We've traded a bit of chaos for a world of peace. But at what cost? Susan pressed on. The Society for Humanity believes we've become puppets, that we've surrendered our free will. They argue that the machines dictate our choices, from the food we eat to the jobs we take, and even the partners we choose. They fear we've lost our humanity, our ability to err and learn from our mistakes. Byley chuckled softly. And yet, the Society uses the very technology they condemn to spread their message. They don't see the irony. Susan nodded, her gaze drifting to the interface. The machines make life better, yes, but they also control everything. Our jobs, our resources, even our thoughts to some extent. The machines don't control our thoughts, Susan. Byley corrected gently. They guide us and they provide us with information and recommendations, but ultimately, we make our own choices. We still have free will, Susan. We can choose to follow the machine's guidance or not. Susan sighed, her brows furrowed in thought. But how much of a choice do we really have? Take the regions, for example. The Eastern region, the tropics, and Europe, each has its own unique challenges and agendas. How can the machines possibly reconcile the needs and desires of all these diverging one over the other, without favoring one over the other? Byley stood up and walked over to the large window, his silhouette dark against the illuminated cityscape. The machines analyze and calculate an incredible amount of data to find a path that benefits the greatest number. It's an intricate balance, Susan. It's not perfect, and sometimes sacrifices must be made, but it's the best system we have. The alternative is a return to the dark ages of human history, where regional conflicts and misunderstandings reign. The soft hum of the machine's interface filled the brief silence that followed. The room was dimly lit, with only the gentle glow of the machine's screen and the twinkling city lights outside providing illumination. The air felt heavy with the weight of their discussion. Susan spoke softly, her voice laced with concern. What about the concerns of the northern region? Madame Sigetsovska mentioned economic irregularities and disruptions in industries like the Almaden Mercury mines. Are these growing pains or signs of deeper issues with the machine's guidance? Byley turned from the window, his expression thoughtful. The northern region has always been more skeptical of the machine's influence. Their issues are partly due to a failure to fully embrace the machine's recommendations. For instance, the labor troubles at the Mercury mines could have been avoided if Consolidated Cinnabar had consulted the machine effectively. However, it's also true that the machines don't always foresee every variable, and adjustments must be made. Susan considered his words, her gaze flicking between Byley and the machine's interface. So, the machines aren't infallible. But isn't that the very issue? We've come to rely on them so completely that any mistake they make has far-reaching consequences. Byley ran a hand through his hair, his expression pensive. You're right, Susan. We do rely on them, and they rely on us. It's a symbiotic relationship. We provide the machines with purpose and moral direction, and they in turn offer us guidance and calculations that we couldn't possibly achieve on our own. It's a partnership, one that has brought us peace and prosperity, even if it comes at a cost. Susan fell silent, her eyes never leaving the machine's interface. The soft glow bathed her face in an otherworldly light, highlighting the mix of emotions playing across her features. Byley's voice turned thoughtful. Perhaps the machines are simply a reflection of ourselves. They are a product of our collective intelligence, our hopes and our desires for a better world. They are a mirror that shows us both our strengths and our flaws. And maybe, just maybe, through them, we can continue to evolve and shape a brighter future. As he finished speaking, the machine's interface flickered, drawing their attention. A new message appeared, causing Susan to lean forward, her curiosity piqued. The soft chime that accompanied it seemed to herald a new development, one that would further test the delicate balance between humanity and the machines they had created.